Hi, and welcome to today's broadcast. This is Politics Today with yours truly, number one interpreter of everybody. Today we'll be interpreting for the Nigerian Constitution. Right there on your screen, you can see the 1999 Constitution as amended of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You would have heard this time and time again, people saying the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Constitution as amended. 1999 Constitution as amended. You hear this often, that sometimes you don't really ask yourself, what does it mean by as amended? The reason you have that phrase as amended was because of, obviously, the constitution existed before 1999, but then they made some amendments to that constitution. That's just what it is. So for us to understand the context that we'll be discussing today as it relates to presidential election, we have to look at the predecessor. We have to look at the predecessor, and then we come and look at the current constitution. So let us look at the relevant sections of the predecessor, and then we'll look at the current constitution. But I think before we do that, let's just look at the history. Let's look at the history of the Nigerian Constitution. So over time, from 1914, you have the amalgamation document, right? When the North and the South were amalgamated. Many people claim they weren't part of that agreement and blah, blah, blah. But whatever the case is, we were amalgamated. The North and the South were joined together as an entity in 1914 and we became a country. That's what happened. Then 1946, there was a review of that. So in 1946, it will be as amended from 1914. Then 51, then 60, then 63, then 79. The current constitution we have of 1999 is as amended from 1979. So you get the picture. When you hear the constitution as amended, it is important to look at the history or the predecessor of that document to understand the heart of the people that wrote that document and why the amendment is important to you or what the change could mean. Because when you know where you're coming from, it is easier to know where you're going to. But if you don't know where you're coming from, you may not even know where you're going to. So let's see where we're coming from and try to envisage the destination vision of the forefathers or the founding fathers or the people that penned down these constitutions. So let's go back. So we are looking at the 1999 Constitution as amended. So let's look at the constitutions. All right. So the first one we're going to look at is the 1979 Constitution. Let's look at 1979 Constitution, Section 125 and Section 126, because these two sections will help to paint the picture of what we're going to see in the rest of this conversation today. Right. So I'll read. A candidate for an election to the office of the president shall be deemed to have been duly elected to such office where being the only candidate nominated for the election. So this is when there is just one candidate, a sole candidate, or a unanimous nominee, if you will, a unified candidate, an unopposed candidate, if you will. You can use different terms for it. He has a majority of yes votes over no votes cast at the election, and he has not less than a quarter of the votes cast at the election in each of at least 2/3 of all the states in the federation. But where the only candidate fails to be elected in accordance with this section, then there shall be fresh nominations. So if you fail to meet this, if you fail to get 2/3 of the states, the 2/3, if you fail to get at least 2/3 of all the states in the federation, if you fail to get 25% of 2/3 of all the states in the federation, then there has to be a fresh nomination. Section 126, subsection 1. A candidate for an election to the office of president shall be deemed to have been duly elected where there being only two candidates for the election. A, he has the majority of votes cast at the election, and B, he has not less than one quarter, again 25%, of the votes cast at the election in each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation. Subsection 2 of Section 126. A candidate for an election to the office of President shall be deemed to have been duly elected where there be more than two candidates for the election. A. He has the highest number of votes cast at the election, and B. He has not less than one quarter of the votes cast at the election, each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation. This is important. It stops at Federation. It says to be elected, number one, you must have the highest number of votes. That's A. B. You must have 25%. You must have not less than 25% of the votes cast at the election, each of at least two-thirds of the states in the Federation. So, however the number of states we have in the Federation, you have to get at least one quarter of the votes in at least two-thirds of the state. And I see there was a typo here that was carried over to 1999. It wasn't amended. So I think I will propose an amendment. All right, you can call it the interpreter's amendment, because here it says he has not less than one quarter of the votes cast at the election. The word in is missing here, in each, and this was carried over to 1999 Constitution. We're going to see that later. So in each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation. And it stops there. All the states in the Federation. So let's go to 1999 Constitution and read the relevant section. So it's 134 in this case. So section 134, and we're going to go to subsection 2 to read directly, because subsection 1 talks about where there are just two candidates. So where there are being only two candidates. In the current dispensation, we have more than two candidates. We have 18 candidates. So let's go exactly to number 2, subsection 2, which addresses the mischief that we're talking about right now. Number 2, a candidate for an election to the office of president shall be deemed to have been duly elected where there being more than two candidates for the election. A. He has the highest number of votes cast at the election, and B. He has not less than one quarter of the votes cast at the election, each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I think this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the tire meets the road, and there's a lot of argument. Like I said earlier, they copied this from 1979, and they missed that in. This word "in" was omitted in 1999 as it was omitted in 1979. I think it's a minor typo, can be fixed easily. Maybe they will call it an amendment. I don't know what they will call it, but that is a minor typo. Anyways, so here it says in each. So he said in each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. This is where the confusion is, and many people, many legal minds are playing on both sides, trying to figure out what is the, if Abuja is part of the states, and if it's part of the states, then it should be, if you just get 25% in, let's say, 25 states, then you're covered. But is this the mischief that was being addressed here? Was this the mindset of the people that wrote this law? We have to find out. And we're going to do this methodically, because we have to go to this constitution to define a state for us, especially as it relates to Abuja. So let's go to that. It's very, very important. So the provisions of the Constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory as if it were one of the states of the Federation, and accordingly. So you can stop here and say, well, this applies to Abuja as if it's a state in the Federation. Now, if you stop here, you will be making a mistake. So let's finish reading this. It says, all the legislative powers, the executive powers, and the judicial powers vested in the House of Assembly, the governor of a state, and in the courts of a state shall, respectively, vest in the National Assembly, the President of the Federation, and the courts, which by virtue of the foregoing provisions are courts established for the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. So just to make this to download this and to explain this in a very simplified version, this is just saying that Abuja is a state and the governor of that state is the president of the federation. So if you take in Abuja as a state, you should take the president of the country as the governor of that state, and the Senate or the federal legislative arms as you would take House of Assembly. In another provision, it talks about Abuja being one senatorial district, so you can take it as also a senatorial district. So Abuja is a state without a governor, whose governor is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now you're getting the picture. So if you now take this together, you understand that the picture being painted here is that of a potential 37th state where the governor here is the president. Wait a minute. Don't be in a hurry because we have to go to section 3 to see all the states in the federation. So let's just go to let's find the states in the federation. Section 3 here gives us the names of the states in the federation. Section 3, subsection 1 says there shall be 36 states in Nigeria. Okay, so there are 36, not 37. Wait a minute, I thought we just say there is a 37 state. Hold on. There shall be 36 states in the federation. That is to say, Abia, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Benue, Borno, Cross River, Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, Ekiti, Enugu, Gombe, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Kogi, Kwara, Lagos, Nasarawa, Niger, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, Oyo, Plateau, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba, Yobe, and Zamfara. Never read that fast in my life before. So these are the states in the federation. Each state of Nigeria named in the first column of part 1 of this schedule to this constitution shall consist the area shown opposite thereto in the second column of that schedule. Okay, so we have seen the names of the states in the federation, but there was no mention of Abuja here. Don't be in a hurry because when you come to section 4, subsection 4, it says that the Federal Capital Territory Abuja shall be as defined in part 2 of this constitution. So you can go on and on and on and see what is defined for Abuja. Let's go to section 301. Again, it is not easy to read this document in isolation, but let's just try. Let's just try and pick some things, and you can go ahead and read the rest for yourself. Let's go to 301. Okay, without prejudice to the generality of the provisions of section 299, which 299 is what described the Federal Capital Territory for us, right? And tells us that the governor of that state is the president of the federation. So let's just read 301. Without prejudice to the generality of the provisions of section 299 of this constitution, in its application to the Federal Capital Territory Abuja, this constitution shall be construed as if references to the governor, deputy governor, and executive council of a state, howsoever called, it doesn't matter how you call it, were references to the president, vice president, and the executive council of the federation, howsoever called, respectively. So if tomorrow you decide to come up with any other word, but it represents these ones or refers to these ones, whatsoever called, you shall regard them as the same, right? Without prejudice. Now, what am I trying to say? In a layman's term, we are saying that there's a state, not part of the 36, but a 37th state, if you will, whose governor is the president, whose deputy governor is the vice president. Take it that way. Now, let's go to interpret section 134 again. Now that we have a background, let's go back to section 134, subsection 2. Subsection 2 says, and B, let's just go straight to B, because A is, without ambiguity, but B is where the issue is, where the rubber meets the road. One among the, B, so 2B, yeah, 2B. He has not less than 1/4 of the votes cast in the election in each of at least, and I put this in quotes, in each of at least 2/3 of all the states of the federation, and that's where 1979 stops, but 1999 as amended says, and the Federal Capital Territory. So if you put Abuja as part of the states, let's do that. You have 37 states. Then you have to win in 25 states. You have to have 25% in 25 states in addition to having the majority of the votes. If you put it that way, the question is, why did you expressly declare Abuja in this context? Because in section 1, in section 3, sorry, we know the states. There were 36 of them, and Abuja was not part of them. So if you're interpreting this to mean that Abuja having the status of a state according to subsection 299, if you're interpreting, therefore, that Abuja is a state, the question is, why did you call out Abuja in 134, subsection 2, part B? Why didn't you call out Gombe? Why didn't you call out Katsina, Kano, Jigawa? Why didn't you call out Enugu, Ebonyi, Cross River? Why didn't you call out any other place? Why did you just say, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja? Could it be that you, being the president of the nation, or, if you will, the governor of FCT, because when you become the president, you are going to be the governor of FCT. Could it be that you, being the governor of FCT, needs to have at least a quarter of the people in the capital city, in your state, in support of you being their governor? Could it be? Because people have made the argument that we are trying to give Abuja a special status. Does it mean that residents of Abuja are better than every other person? That's not the case. Abuja is the maritime port of the nation. When they carved out that portion of the country, Abuja looked like a heart. It looks like a heart. It is the heart, the pumping, the heartbeat of the nation, the melting pot of the nation. And you, being the president and the governor of that place, need to have at least a quarter of the people there give you thumbs up to be their governor. And that is why they called it out. So, question, why didn't they call out Lagos in 1979? Why didn't they say in 1979 that you will win 2/3 of all the states and Lagos? Why wasn't it called out? Well, number one, it's because Lagos was one of the states in the Federation in 1979. And Lagos had a governor. Lagos had a governor. There was somebody in Lagos who was the governor of the state. So the president was not the governor of Lagos. Lagos had its own governor. As you can see, these are the states. In 1979, Lagos had a governor, and Lagos had the legislative arms and the courts. And also, it was the seat of power. It was also the federal capital. But it wasn't without a governor. So it wasn't important to call out Lagos, because whoever wins is going to be the president, but not the governor of Lagos, because Lagos will also elect its own governor. That is why at that time you have a governor in parallel with the president in Lagos. But now, when Abuja was created and carved out and designed the way it was designed without a governor in mind. And the mindset of the people that designed it was that the president shall be the governor of that area, that territory. Therefore, if you're going to occupy the seat of power in that territory, in that area, you need to enjoy popularity by the people of that state, in quote. And therefore, section 301 talks about the reference to state governors and deputy state governors as to the president and vice president, respectively, and this without prejudice. And also, subsection 299 addresses and lets us know that the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, so let's read that section again, has the status of a state, if you will. 299 says Abuja has the status of a state. However, this is as it deals with. So let's read it clearly. It says the provisions of this constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as if it were one of the states of the Federation, and accordingly. So you have to take note of this piece. And accordingly, all the legislative powers and the executive powers and the judicial powers vested on the House of Assembly, the governor of a state, and in the courts of a state shall respectively vest on the National Assembly, the President of the Federation, and in the courts, which by virtue of the foregoing provisions are courts established for the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Now you can see this clearly. This is with reference or without, if you will, in accordance. It said accordingly, the legislative powers. So when it comes to making laws for the Federal Capital Territory, this shall rest on the National Assembly. When it comes to governing, it will rest on the presidency. And when it comes to courts, it shall rest on the courts of the Federation. So that's where we're going to end this today. And you can go ahead and read this for yourself. Go ahead and read the Constitution for yourself. Read the Constitution of 1999 as amended, but you can also read the predecessor to get the mindset, what was going on in their minds when this Constitution was drafted. Because as you can see clearly in section 126, of the Constitution, it clearly states that the president shall have A, won the majority of the votes cast, and B, should have won at least a quarter of all the votes cast in at least two-thirds of all the states of the Federation, and it ends there. Once it gets to the states of the Federation, it ends there. It didn't put any other clause about a particular state. But when it comes to 1999 as amended, another clause was added, which says, including and the Federal Capital Territory. If you will, you can say you would have won a quarter of all the votes cast in all the states. And these states, Abuja must be one of them. If you want to say it that way, you can say it that way. Abuja must be one of them. And which is the same as others are saying. So you would have gotten 25% in 24 states. And in addition to that, so you should have gotten at least 25% in 24 states. And in addition to that, get another 25% in Abuja. Say it the way you want it. But whatever your winning is, Abuja must be one of them. Abuja must be one of them. So if I go, let's go to 126 and just read it one more time. 2 here. He has not less than a quarter of all the votes, so of the votes cast at the election in each of at least two-thirds of all the states in the Federation. And it stops here. Because here, no particular state is a must-have. No particular state is a must-have. But in 1999, Abuja is a must-have. Abuja is a must-have. It's like you get this and then you get others. If you don't get this, you don't get others. It's like in an exam, you have a mandatory question. You must answer this and then you answer the rest. If you don't answer that, you fail. If you fail that particular question, you fail. I remember one time in our university days, we were tasked with designing some computer systems. And question number 1 had 70% of 70 marks. 70% of the marks was assigned to question number 1. The rest of the questions only get 30%. So if you're wise, when you come into that exam, you concentrate on number 1, because when you get it, even if you're only able to solve that number 1, you have gotten, if you got it correct, you have gotten 70%. You can fail the rest of them, but get this number 1 and you're good. Many of us spent sleepless nights learning this number 1 question. Right? We spent most of our time learning it. When I got into the exam, I didn't want to leave any question unanswered. So what I did was I set an alarm. We had 2 hours to write this exam, and you have to design this computer full end-to-end system. You have to design it. So what I did was I set my alarm for like 20 minutes to answer the rest of the questions and the remaining time for number 1. So I started from number 2 and I did all I could. Immediately my alarm went off, I stopped and I went to number 1 and I spent the rest of the time, because I knew if I stayed in number 1, I might not finish it and then the time will be up. So I did it that way, and that exam came and I did excellently well. I got an A. I don't remember the exact score, but I did excellently well because I spent my time to do number 1. I spent bulk of my time. Out of the 120 minutes we had, I spent about 100 minutes on number one. Because I knew the power allocated to number one. And that's what happened here. The people of Labour Party understood the constitution, and they put their eggs, they put their money where the mouth is. And they campaigned accordingly. And you can see they blew everyone else out of the water in Abuja. They got 61% in Abuja. The rest shared the remaining 39%. That was brutal. Because they know this is number one. You have to put it down first. So they blew everyone else out of the water in Abuja, which is the melting pot, which is the heart of the nation. And then they went elsewhere in other parts of the nation. But others didn't care about this. They just went in and tried to do from number 2 to number 100, thinking that we've done well. They've done well elsewhere, but they failed to get number one. And INEC, you have to read this constitution. Again, I implore INEC to read the 1999 constitution in tandem with 1979 constitution, because you have to understand the mindset of the framers of this constitution. Why did they write it the way they wrote it? Why didn't they just lift section 126 of 1979 that way into 1999? Why did they have to call out and the Federal Capital Territory Abuja? Could it be because in 1979, sorry, there was no state in Nigeria that had no governor. But in 1999, there was a state, there's a territory that ascended the status of a state but had no governor, whose governor is the president, whose deputy governor is the vice president, whose courts are the federal courts in Abuja. And for this case, since you're going to be sitting there in the seat of power as the governor of this new state, in quote, you must be popular in your state. All right, we're going to call it a day here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Please share, like, subscribe, comment, and let's get our nation back. Let's get our nation back. In the next video, I'll be showing you a video, maybe a comment by other people, about the election, the sensitization that went on before the election, and some people have misconstrued it, and I really get I feel ashamed for people that should know better when they act as if they do not know, and then they start peddling lies. And sometimes I think that they know, because a lawyer should know. If a lawyer doesn't know things about the law, then I feel pity for them, right? So when you see lawyers who peddle lies, you know that they are trying to subvert justice. You know that they're trying to incite people. You know that they're intentionally trying to deceive, and it just rubs me the wrong way. So maybe that's going to be our next broadcast. It's going to come live shortly, just in a few minutes, but I want to end this one on the interpretation of the Constitution, and then we're going to go over and do our normal animated videos on what people are saying. Until then, I will be signing out right now. But again, remember to like, subscribe, comment, share. Let this go viral. Let people know their constitution. These are available online. You have a document that governs you. You should know about it. And it's free online. Go and read it. Read 1979, read 1999. You can read just 1999 just to be familiar with what is going on. You don't have to read everything, but the sections that are relevant to the events, you can read them and just find other related and relevant sections and read it so you can have a full picture of what is going on. All right, until I come back again, please spread it, share this, share, and thanks to those who subscribed. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. So we have 2 more videos coming today in quick succession. One of them is going to be that sensitization video, and then one of them is going to be on our principle P2OB. We're going to see the love, the organic love from the people. So let's just go ahead and share this video. Don't be far away. The next video is coming in a few minutes, just for us to switch our systems, and then we'll be back. Bye.